Penn State football gets their linebacker for the class of 2022. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. This is T. Frank's Film Room, and today we're examining Abdul Carter. He is a three-star linebacker from LaSalle High School in Pennsylvania, 9th player in the state according to Rivals, 28th overall at his position in the nation, and he is an interesting read. Let me tell you what, this was a tough one. It's one that, when you do evaluations, sometimes it feels like you come across guys that no matter what you say, you don't feel right. Like, you don't feel like you're going to be right about this player. And Carter, for me, is that guy because there's a lot of layers to this. The first one is that linebacker is a very technical position with a lot of different responsibilities. It's a really hard position, and it's one that it takes a mature football player to execute at a high level at all times. So on the high school level, we need to have that understanding. The second thing is he's one of the few guys that we do have accurate testing numbers for. He's 6'3", 225, 230 pounds, and he runs a 4.5 40. That puts him in line with all the other great Penn State linebackers recently, including Brandon Smith. That size, speed combination, on top of the explosive metrics that we have, over a 31-inch vertical jump, his shuttle was in the 4.4 range. That's really explosive. So he's one of the few guys that we have the testing numbers on in this class. By the way, if you want to see the rest of the class, make sure you subscribe to T. Frank's Film Room and you check it out on our Blue-White Illustrated YouTube page. We have a ton of film evaluation of these players. But Carter, those testing numbers are great, but I hope that it makes sense here. We're going to look at things in a little bit of a different way on this one. I want to show you what I saw first and what I noticed, what I think is masking those speed numbers when we get to the film. And the first thing is that he has, the best thing I can call is a non-linear movement skill. Here he's an unblocked edge rusher with a fumble. I keep asking myself, why wasn't he the first guy to the ball there? Here you have him in coverage, and this is not indicative of his coverage skills, but it's indicative of the fact that he doesn't always play up to that speed. When he runs, most people run with one foot relatively in front of the other, right? Well, Carter runs kind of lumbering with his feet to the side. He's got these long legs and long arms, and I think he's trying to break down in space and accelerate at the same time. Here's a good view of it where his feet go to the side instead of forward. He does this a lot. And that, to me, makes him look less fast, and I think it also limits his speed a little bit. So it's just it's a quirky thing that can kind of mask what is superior athleticism, you know, almost elite when we look at the athletic skills. The other thing that I see about him is that this is going to help him in the long run, but right now, while he's still learning the position, he can be a little slow to diagnose. Now, he doesn't overrun plays, and this is actually a play where he reads it the wrong way, but it is one where he can be a little passive at times. He reads more than I'd like. So typically you want to have one or two read steps where you just pat, pat, and then go. He pat, pat, go, pat, pat, wait, pat, pat, go. You can be too passive, and I think that there's a little bit of that on his film where I want to see him take those confident read steps and then go to the football where, okay, the guard is now pulling. You need to get over into position, into your new gap, and you need to get downhill. This is a run play. So go get the football. You are more than capable of going to get the football. And again, I just want to say, like, in the long run, I want a patient linebacker that doesn't over pursue and play action, because that's where big plays come in the passing game. And I think that that's a part of this. So I want to give him that leeway and that credit as well, but we just need to be a little bit more towards that evenness. And I think part of it, though, is a confidence factor. His feet can be noisy in general, so knowing that's usually an indication of indecision. So knowing what you're doing, being confident, and going and getting it, those are all things that I think can improve. And as I said at the beginning, linebacker is a really hard position, so it's not surprising that at this stage in development, it's not all perfect. But when he does read and when he does have confidence in what he's seeing, the plays to the football are really impressive. These are where you get that bang in the hole, where he's taking on linebackers, he's getting into the backfield, he's taking on fullbacks, and he's getting those tackles for loss. I love these plays. These are the plays that you want to see if you have 4-5, where you're running an outside zone down from the backside and you're getting that tackle for loss. Or here, you're getting to the pull and the point of attack before the lineman. He's capable of these plays, and getting them on a regular basis is more of what we're talking about here, where he's got this big, physical, long, strong frame. He's college-sized and college-physiqued already, so all of that, when it shows up, that's the important thing, because he's got that long, lean sort of look, but he can move. He's not heavy-footed. And I think that's an important thing to see as well on film. And an interesting part about that evaluation is, despite some of the funky movement skills, he's actually a good player in space, where he can be lined up in man coverage in some select matchups. And he's a good man defender. He shows good instincts in zone. Again, that he doesn't go downhill immediately, so he's already got an advantage as a coverage player. Here he is as a spy, getting into the passing lane as in front of the quarterback. And then, of course, the most dramatic ones are when you're playing in man coverage and you can match up with a running back in the slot. But for Penn State, they run a lot of zone stuff and spot drops, where you get to a spot and then you look for where the football's going. He does that really well. That patience pays off, where he can then get into passing lanes. And at 6'3", with that long frame and really long reach, that makes him a very good coverage player. So he's got the speed and he's got the movement skills as a coverage player that you really like. So a great profile as a coverage player, and that's the harder part that I think. That's the harder part to learn as a linebacker. So that's an advantage coming into college, that he knows all that stuff. And then when he puts it all together, this is why you feel really good about the run stuff, because when he puts it all together, then you see the highlights. Then you see the guy that, if you're watching the highlight film, this is what you're used to seeing, where he can get downhill, he's explosive, and he's big. Ignore that one there. He's over on the far side here with the blue shoes, going to get the football in the flat, and he's getting tackles for loss. Also, the impact of when he gets to the football and he arrives on time and decisively in a linear pattern, he creates forced fumbles. And he can be that chase player, or he can line up in the gap and just blow up fullbacks at the high school level. He's capable of all of these things, and the highlights are there, but it's the down-to-down consistency on film that is not quite there. And that's the part where, if you're not careful, you can be overly critical of a young linebacker. Because, as I'll say a third time, it's really hard to play linebacker, so you should probably give a young guy a little bit more leeway than you would at some other positions where, I think receiver is one you can be more advanced early on, but linebacker, you've got so many responsibilities, and you're at a disadvantage from the offensive perspective anyway. So the consistency at linebacker is very important, and that's one area where I think it'll take him a little longer, depending on what we see his senior year. If he's more confident and he's a little more aggressive, then he immediately translates physically. His game is just taking a little bit of time to catch up to his size. And by the way, again, even though he's got kind of this lanky movement skills, he is athletic, because any dude his size that can do a kip up like that, you're athletic. You're a freak. That is really impressive. Some of the things that I do think we can point out, though, when it comes to his positional skills that should improve over time, and this is where college coaching, I think, will really help him, is his block destruction. He is, despite his size and his length, I wouldn't say this is, again, where he's a little bit passive. Where on a screen here, you shouldn't be messing around with the receiver. Go get the football. That's a guy you run through. There's a lot of trying to run over blocks instead of disengaging, using his obvious strength and his core strength to shed blocks and use his hands. That's an area where I don't think he quite knows how to use his hands yet and play with contact balance to the football on a consistent basis. His chase plays are great, but this is an area, again, where I want to see him play through contact a little better, use that length and that strength to your advantage. Just use all your advantages, and then you'll be a dominant player. That's really all he has to learn how to do. And again, that's possible with coaching and with time. The last thing that, when it comes to some of the things that I'd like to see improve, is, in general, he is a guy that doesn't want to give up touchdowns, I think, because at 4'5", with that size, he should be taking more aggressive angles to the football. Again, he's a very careful player, but I want to see him say, okay, go get the football. You've got safeties to make sure that there isn't a touchdown. Your job as the linebacker is to run through blocks and go get the football, and I think there needs to be just a touch more of that, and then you'll see those highlights show up more. This is, again, one of those situations, we had this with Dennis Sutton, of you're so big, and you look so dominant that when you're not that guy, when you're not already a college linebacker in your abilities, then we start to question, why aren't we seeing more of that? And that's unfair because he's a junior playing linebacker. So these are just a couple of areas that I think will be good for him to think about and improve on as he gets into his senior year and then as he gets into college. It's all capable there where he can be that prototype of a run stuffer and a coverage linebacker. And if you're going to get a 3-star athlete, Penn State has done this consistently. Get guys that you believe can develop. A 3-star that is the biggest ball of clay that you can find athletically, and I do think that's what you have with Abdul Carter. So a great upside with Carter, but the down-to-down consistency as a linebacker, it'll take a little bit of time for him to adjust to the college football level. At least that's what I think. And that's my view in T. Frank's film room. One last thing, though, too. There is the possibility that we do have to bring up, he's 6'3", 230 pounds. Can he be another Penn State linebacker that moves to edge defender because he outgrows the position? I don't think he's like Zariah Fisher, who I viewed as a guy that was destined immediately to go to edge defender because he didn't have the movement skills in space. Carter does. I don't think his frame also looks like he's going to get to 255 or 260. I think he can play at that really prototype positional size of 245. I think he's got a really great frame, and that's going to be his high-end ability, is to be that complete player. How much of the mental stuff that comes along will determine how quickly he gets to that spot. This has been T. Frank's Film Room. Make sure you subscribe to get more of this, more evaluations, and so you don't miss any in the future. But for more on Abdul Carter right now, go to bwi.rivals.com/subscribe to get the inside information from Blue White Illustrated.